This episode of Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by CastBox. CastBox is the fastest growing, highest rated podcast app where you can find all of your favorite podcasts, and it's available on both iOS and Android. You can listen to Sacred Symbols via whichever service you choose, of course, but we hope you'll give CastBox a shot. We think they're pretty rad. To get each episode of Sacred Symbols 3 days before the public, completely ad-free, please consider supporting the show on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. Perks for support include not only getting the show early and ad-free, but you can also gain access to monthly exclusive podcasts, and supporting on Patreon is the only way to get your listener mail read on the air, and much more. Plus, supporting Sacred Symbols on Patreon also nets you perks for other Colin's Last Stand shows automatically, including the nostalgia and retro podcast Knockback, the YouTube series dedicated to gaming called SideQuest, and the eclectic interview podcast Fireside Chats. Thank you for your generosity, kindness, and support. Without you, Sacred Symbols and all things Colin's Last Stand would not exist. But enough of that. On to the show. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 23. My name is Colin Moriarty. Today, I'm joined by the birthday boy, Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing good. It's a birthday, almost.
Well,
by the time this airs for patrons, I guess.
Yeah, your birthday is tomorrow from when we're recording this, right?
Yeah.
So it is today if you are a patron. You're hearing this. It's Chris's 25th birthday.
25.
So say 26. I'm like, were you 25 already? Well, are you excited? Do you like your birthday?
Take it or leave it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's a December birthday, so it kind of doesn't matter, really.
That's the way it feels with my brother, too. My brother's birthday is on the 6th of December. And actually, I've just got him a combined birthday Christmas present. You kind of get ripped off at this point. But you could also do like the big gift, right? My birthday's in October. So when I got my PS2 in October of 2000, my mom was like, this is your birthday present and your Christmas present.
Yeah.
That's the kind of nonsense that they pulled on me that year.
Yeah, no, that's what I get all the time.
Yeah, so that's a little unfortunate, but happy birthday. Now, Chris, I got you a present.
Oh.
I told you that I was going to improvise.
Oh, no.
Now, I'm getting up.
Walking. This is horrifying.
I'm walking to the closet.
Oh, Jesus Christ. This is the most concerned I've ever been.
Now, I didn't have any wrapping paper, so I wrapped it.
Is that paper towels?
I wrapped it in paper towels.
Is it brawny?
It's brawny paper towels. This is probably $4 worth of brawny paper towels wrapped around this box. But here you go.
Okay. Oh my God.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
Go ahead and pull the brawny paper towels off.
Oh, well, would you look at that? It's a PlayStation VR.
There you go.
Oh, shit.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, dude. Oh, shit, I just knocked the mic.
Now, I'm a little confused by this because this is the Gran Turismo Sport Edition.
What?
I didn't ask for that. So,
okay.
There's that. I'm also 50% confident someone's opened that box before.
Oh,
because, because look at the label. I bought this on Amazon.
It's got so many dents in it.
But it arrived and it apparently works. So I bought it new, so it better be new. If it's not new, you better let me know. But happy 25th birthday of PlayStation VR for you so you can enjoy Tetris Effect. You did say last week or 2 weeks ago that you wouldn't buy another VR unit. So I kept that in mind. And I'm like, well, I'll buy you your VR unit then. So now you can enjoy Tetris Effect and all the PlayStation and PS4 games in VR. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, man. Dude. It's I gotta put this off to the side. It's freaking heavy.
Look at this. Now look at this. Now hold on a second. I taped them all together, the paper towels, before.
You gotta take a picture of this to accommodate the tweet.
So there you go.
Good
You can keep that. Put that in your collection of paper towels. So there you go. It's Chris's birthday. Everyone wish him a happy birthday on Twitter or wherever you are. Send him your PSVR suggestions. Very exciting stuff.
Beat Saber.
I still have to play that. That's on the list when I get back because I'm leaving in a couple of days here to go east for 10 days. And I wanted to talk about that briefly because episode 23, we're recording this. This is a normal episode. Episode 24 will go up on time, but we're going to record it today. And it's going to be our most anticipated games of 2019. And I've done an algorithmic mathematical equation to create a list of our favorite or our most anticipated games in a fair way. So we'll go over that. So that'll be happening. Because of that, we're going to miss the Game Awards this weekend. I don't really give a fuck about who wins the Game Awards, but obviously there are game announcements there, so we're going to have to catch up with those
Yeah,
late.
there's going to be a lot of them, apparently.
We'll have to just catch up with that. It's just a quirk of the scheduling, and we apologize about that. But Nate McKinney wrote into us, and remember, you can write into us by supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. He said, hey, Colin and Chris, the Game Awards are rapidly approaching, and Jeff Keighley is teasing some pretty big bombshell announcements. What do you guys think we will see, or what we hope we will see? I feel like Mortal Kombat 11 is fairly likely, given how sure people were that it would be at E3 this year, and the timing is about right for it. But what would you guys like to see get revealed at the show? Thanks for putting out a great show every week, and shout out to all those babies giving their lives for such a noble cause. Is there anything in particular you want to see at the Game Awards? Because I don't really care too deeply about what's announced. There's so many games, as we're going to do next episode. There are so many games on the horizon already.
Yeah.
That adding more games to the list, to me, I'm like, well, that's fun. I mean, we'll worry about that later, but I'm not really anticipating anything.
Yeah, I feel like I'm already kind of overloaded with stuff to look forward to. I think I'd like to see stuff that I wasn't expecting. Stuff like Sekiro. Like, I didn't think Sekiro was going to happen. I was like, oh my God, I love this. Was this Dark Souls with grappling hooks?
Right.
I'll take it.
Right.
You know, but I can't think of anything that I would even remotely want to see, aside from, obviously, a very photorealistic and next-gen version of the famous Crash Team Racing.
Yes, of course.
From Naughty Dog.
Of course. That's what Toys for Bob are working on next. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm excited that people are excited. I just feel like, because even when we were doing, or I was compiling the games of the list that we're going to do next episode, I was like, wow, I forgot that all these games were coming out. And I had a really hard time whittling down my list to 10 games, because we each whittled down our list to 10 respective games. And so, yeah, I've said, and I'm not really even joking, that I could go an entire year without any new game releases and be perfectly fine. It would be disastrous for our podcast. I could be totally fine with that as a gamer. There's so much to catch up on. So I'm excited that people are excited about the Game Awards. Jeff Keighley's a nice guy. I know him personally. Very nice man. Works really hard on this every year. Definitely support him and send him nice words on social media. But who wins, I don't really care about. It's those announcements.
Yeah, it's the fun of the show. I like the Game Awards as a show. I think it's fun, and I like Jeff a lot.
Do you remember, it was a couple years ago, I had forgotten about it, but I saw a GIF of it when people were talking about the Game Awards recently. Remember when there was like the guy dressed up as a razor blade? It was like, you know, the Norelco man or something like that. Do you remember that? That was like such a weird thing. I forgot about that.
I was taking a sip of water when you jolted that horrifying image into my head. Almost died.
He was like always in the crowd, like big razor head. He looked like a Mega Man villain.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like at this year's E3, they had the Drake's coffee cake duck walking around or something. And that was also jarring.
You got to get that sponsorship money, I guess. It's expensive to make that show, I assume. Although, I've had this conversation many times in the past, and I don't mean it as a disrespect to Jeff Keighley, and I don't mean it as a disrespect to anyone or disrespectfully to anyone who enjoys these shows, but it does seem like the way the show is done is kind of old. Like, it's a relic. It's like something you'd think you would see on TV at some point.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point, though. Almost. I think that's kind of the spirit of it, where it's like this kind of like, hey, it's like TV, which I kind of get.
I feel like we got to move on from that.
Yeah, probably.
Matthew Clarkson wrote in and said, hey guys, thought I'd just use my birthday being on the 5th a day after this airs as a reason to get on the podcast. I know how petty, but a guy's got to do what a guy's got to do. Any favorite memories of getting a game for your birthday? I got Need for Speed Underground as a teen and love the game. Keep on making Tuesdays great again and happy holidays. Since it is Chris's birthday on the day this goes live on Patreon, I thought I would ask you, Chris, do you remember getting any games in particular for your birthday, December 4th?
Yeah.
You were born December 4th in 1994.
1993.
1993.
Yes.
I don't know the mathematics. 1993. So what kind of games did you ever get for your birthday?
I remember specifically... I remember specifically getting Ape Escape, but I remember more specifically getting Dragon Ball Z Budokai for the original PS2 before I got my PS2. So I just had the game, and I got the system for Christmas.
So you just got to look at the game.
Yeah, so I just got to look at the game for a while. Which
cool.
I don't think they fully understood how video games worked. My parents or something, because I don't know why you would do that to a person. But I scoured the house looking for that PS2 because I knew it was hidden somewhere.
Were you one of those people that would look around and like try to find your presents?
No, but when I found the game and not the system, I was like, something's up here. So yeah, I scoured for a while. I did find it, but I was like, you know.
Do you have siblings? I don't think I know this about you.
No.
So you're an only child?
Only child.
I'm the youngest of 4. And my brother's 11 years older than me. My sisters are 9 and 6 years older than me. So by the time that I was a mistake, obviously, and by the time that everything got to me, it was funny. Like there was this, you know, everyone had the pretense that like Santa Claus existed, that Santa was leaving the presents in the tree. And then I remember when I was like 7 or so, everyone just dropped the pretenses. And I remember I have this distinct memory. It was probably in the early 90s of walking into my parents' room and my sisters were wrapping my presents.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was like this earth-shattering realization.
Oh, I remember that. I had that too.
And they would take the G.I. Joes, you know how they have the bubble on the top or whatever, and they would put them together so that they created like a rectangle and they would wrap them together. And I just have a memory of that. I'm like, they stopped caring about this.
That didn't shatter me at all. Because I remember I would always get these presents and I'd be like, this Santa shit doesn't sound real at all. Like, even when I was like a child, I was like, what? We don't even have a chimney. This is an apartment building.
Santa's come.
It was distinctly unconvincing in an apartment building.
Did you guys do, or did your parents do the half-eaten carrots and cookies and stuff in the note? Did you guys do that kind of stuff? Did you leave the note for Santa?
We did.
Yeah.
I went along with it. I just wanted my stuff.
It's funny in hindsight that I just realized my parents were eating the carrots and like the apples for the horse, because you give them the horses to the reindeer, and then
we didn't do carrots. That's weird.
You would leave like cookies and milk for Santa, and then you would leave carrots and apples for the reindeer because the reindeer obviously were exhausted. I mean, the reindeer must have been fucking exhausted at this point in the operation. But then I realized my dad was just writing notes back to me in it left-handed, so it made it look like Santa Claus had Parkinson's disease or something like that. It was
so he was writing it like somebody else was writing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's kind of smart.
No, it was very sweet and very cute. You know, I just loved the thought of eventually everyone's like, we've done this so many times already. We can't do this anymore with you. I'm sorry. It's over. Yeah. It's just over for you. Now, Chris, before we get into the news this week, we do have a number of letters that I wanted to get into from the audience about various things, corrections, and also, I want to say clarifications or qualifications.
Okay.
And I want to remind everyone again, you can support the show early to get the show early and ad-free on patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. And this is the only way you can write in as well, depending on the tier that you support us. So please consider doing that. All of these people did. Darian Gordon wrote into us and said, hello, Colin, and hello, Chris. On a previous episode when talking about Kingdom Hearts, Colin made a joke about Cloud fighting King Triton from The Little Mermaid. This surprisingly does not happen. However, there is a plot point where Hades successfully bribes Cloud to try to kill Hercules in exchange for information on the location of Sephiroth. This is actually a thing that happens, and I just wanted you to both know that. I wanted to bring up Kingdom Hearts for a more serious reason, even though this is a funny segue.
Yeah.
Quite a few people have taken umbrage with our shitting on Kingdom Hearts, and I want to be clear, we're just joking around. I do think that the game looks absolutely ridiculous, and I have no interest in playing it, but I'm excited that you guys are excited. You're welcome here. We're not going to play Kingdom Hearts 3 when it comes out. I'm not, and I'm sure Chris isn't. So we're not trying to insult you.
Hey, listen, everybody likes their own thing. I like stupid shit. But like, you know, I'm just happy that I won't have to hear any more like hype about it, because I think it's the hype for me that's like really irritating. Just like 6 years of hype about this game that just like never came out and is finally coming out. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm glad. Have fun. You're going to love it. I'm sure.
I'm sure you are going to love it, you goddamn nerds. So I just wanted to throw that out there. We're not necessarily trying to insult you by insulting Kingdom Hearts. This is an honest podcast. We're just trying to have a little fun, wrapping presents in paper towels and brawny paper towels, $4 worth of brawny paper towels.
Yeah, sacrificing infants. You know,
the
whole ordeal.
It's all fun. It's all in fun, good fun. Christian Cugini, I think is how you say that.
You might as well.
I think we've read this person's name, so I don't know why I struggled at that time. Are you guys going to address the PS5 rumors by the guy on Reddit who correctly predicted Sony wouldn't be attending E3? They seem pretty plausible to me. No, I have my own connections and I know people and I know when a source is more trustworthy than it isn't. So we'll start talking about PS5. Like I said, the rumors, Chris, are going to begin in earnest.
Yeah.
Very soon. And the leaks are going to start happening and pictures of dev kits and controllers and all. That's all going to happen. And we'll get to that. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves by reporting on Reddit rumors that could very well and probably are unsubstantiated. This show has very little standard, but we're gonna hold ourselves to that particular standard, if that's all right. John Ceccarelli, and he wrote I kept calling him Cesarelli, so he wrote Ceccarelli, so I would say it right. So I'm sorry about that, John. He says, "Hi, Colin and Chris. Great content, just the best.
Ooh.
Nobody makes better content than you do."
Well, that's a very nice lie.
I mean, that's an incredible lie, but I appreciate you. A couple episodes ago, you jokingly mentioned the last remaining Blockbuster store being in the Midwest. As an Oregonian, I'd be remiss if I didn't inform you that it's actually in Bend, Oregon.
Oh.
Keep up the great work. Bend, of course, the home of Sony Bend.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll be in Days Gone. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
if you could hole up in the last Blockbuster.
They have to give it some bootleg name, though. It's like instead of blue, like a blue and yellow ticket stub. It's like something. Yeah. It's like a popcorn. It's like a red and yellow popcorn thing. We'll see. But I wanted to acknowledge, okay, fine, we made a mistake. That was an assumption.
Dude, I thought it was in Alaska.
I think the second to last one was in Alaska. And then they closed that one down.
Okay,
I
so
think that was the big story about why there was only one left. Edwin S. Castillo wrote in and said, "Hi, gents, it's me, your Nier Automata expert. You guys last week were confused about what Yorha was. Yorha is the group name for the androids, those human-looking Lolita-dressed robots. Lolita is the name of my dog, so I'm a little confused by that. That are fighting on the behalf of humanity that left to the moon when the robots began attacking humanity. Glory to mankind and the sacred symbols." That was arguably the nerdiest thing that I've ever read on this show. And I appreciate you informing us. That was, of course, in reference, Chris, to the fact that there's the Yorha edition of Nier Automata coming.
Wasn't it called the Game of the Yorha edition, though?
Yeah, Game of the Yorha edition.
That's what was confusing to me.
You found that a little offensive?
Yeah.
I did. I certainly did. Finally, Thomas Mack wrote into us. And Chris, since PSVR is sitting here now on the floor in front of you, and we were talking about PSVR, and I kind of speculated, being technologically ignorant as I am, what could the PSVR unit itself do on PS5? Is it able to render better graphics? Is it able to work better if it's not working on what you're about to find out is a very cumbersome processing box? And we have an answer that I think makes sense from Thomas Mack, who wrote in and said, "Obviously, the sweet spot for VR is a high resolution and high refresh rate display per eye. For one, the combination is expensive to buy in its standard 16:9 or ultra-wide aspect ratio, let alone 2 custom panels in a VR unit. 2, the console itself isn't powerful enough for that. High-end PCs costing 2,000, and he's British, so he says 2,000 plus pounds would struggle with something like that. The headset itself is part of the problem, because the displays are 1080p, which isn't really high enough, but also the console itself struggles to render at 1080p per eye in some games, so a game may only be rendering at 900p per eye. PSVR has a good refresh rate at 120 hertz, but again, some games can't reach anywhere near that in frames per second, so it becomes a mixed bag. For the next generation, PSVR could revolve around 1440p displays at 128 or 120 hertz, higher cost, but I would hope that the next AMD APU could power a couple of higher displays per eye, but I doubt you would see an increase in FPS, which is kind of half the experience for VR behind the actual resolution. My guess would be a PS4 Pro-like upscale to a higher resolution where the game is rendered at 1080p, but displayed on the headset at 1440p. Incidentally, that would be great to see on the console itself, as PS4 Pro only lets you output in 1080p or 4K, and not to 1440p on normal monitors. So this seemed like an insightful sort of look into what I guess the next PSVR unit could be, and it answers the question, Chris. No, the PSVR unit as it stands now cannot do cool things for us on the next console.
TLDR.
TLDR, exactly. And finally, Adam Romano wrote in and said, "Do you think there is any validity to the rumors that Sony is developing some sort of new handheld or peripheral for the PS5 based on the patent they recently filed for a new cartridge-based media device? Colin, you've always said that if there's a company that's crazy enough to take another crack at a handheld, it's Sony. Thanks for all you do and keep up the good work."
I think I actually looked into this. I think it's actually like a learning leapfrog kind of thing.
Yeah, it's called the Sony Toyo.
It's just like a leapfrog kind of like toy tablet for kids. It's not...
Nothing to get excited about.
Yeah.
Nothing to get excited about.
Alas.
A lot of people were really amped about this because it looked like they were patenting a new cartridge system, which would have been great for a handheld. And I know that I got excited when I saw that. I was like, wow, well, what could that possibly be?
Yeah.
It's not a PlayStation device, so don't get too excited about it. Chris, let's get into what we're playing. What have you been playing the last week?
I've been messing around with Red Dead Online and Battlefield 5.
How are they?
They're fine. They're entirely fine. Battlefield is frustrating because I really liked Battlefield 1, and this one, it's everything that was fine and enjoyable about that game is still fine here, but they seem to have just kind of messed with a lot of the finer details. Like in Battlefield's a class-based shooter, so you have different classes that are made specifically for certain things, and one of them is the medic, and I love the medic because you can go around and be like, oh, that guy's dead. I'm gonna bring him back to life, and it's like quick and like nice and responsive. But in this game, everybody can revive everybody. So
there's no advantage to being the medic.
So there are, because like a medic can revive anybody, whereas like, you know, anybody else can just revive anybody who are in their squad. But that still kind of puts a de-emphasis on that class, and also their weapons suck. So there's no reason to pick a medic, and other little things like anytime you die, you're stuck in this mode where you're on the ground and you either have the choice to, you know, call out for help or give up, but you can't just press a button and give up. You have to hold a button and you slowly give up and fade into the light. And it's like, just, if I die, let me go into the menus so I can respawn. Don't leave me here.
Right.
Like half of the experience in Battlefield 5 is lying on the ground dying, like actually for real. And
so
it's
it's pretty realistic look at warfare.
I mean, yeah, it's a nice realistic touch, but it's not at all what it's not fun at all. It's meandering and kind of all over the place in that regard. And Red Dead Online's kind of the same way, where I'm not super into it. It's kind of jarring because there's single player stories and there's like cutscenes and story, but your main character doesn't talk. So
you're not playing as anyone from the game. You're playing as like an avatar.
Yeah, you're playing as yourself. Whatever the character creator is hilariously hideous. Like every character I've ever seen is the ugliest person I've ever seen. But the story mode just feels kind of out of place. I appreciate the attention to detail and like the story heaviness of the Rockstar single player experience. I love it. I think it's still, even with this kind of weird online version, I still think it's my game of the year, just from the sheer value proposition of it. But I would have preferred a more online experience for Red Dead Online. I want to jump into the Wild West and just go about my business. I don't want to have to...
And what would be your business?
Just, I don't know, hog tying other people to train tracks.
Sure.
You know, robbing stores.
Sure. Going after the suffragettes, like in those YouTube videos.
Going after the suffragettes, maybe finding the KKK, you know. It's fun. It's fun to do that with friends, too. But, like, the fact that I have to sit through and it's like you got to get horse insurance. And it's like, this is the same exact thing I hated about GTA Online.
I heard the economy, is screwed up.
The economy's pretty messed up. It's been there's a lot of overreactions about it. There's something like, it'll take you 50 hours to get this thing. It's not 50 hours. It's like more like 8 or 9. But it's still a lot of hours. It's still too much.
I heard people are having like crazy Wild West gunfights over like $4.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Just hearing people's stories.
It's a lot of fun to hear about. Red Dead Online is a lot of fun to see people play and like react to. It's not nearly as engaging as the single player, and it really does show how much of the heavy lifting of Red Dead Redemption 2 is done by the enveloping narrative. So when you don't have that, it is kind of like, okay, I gotta tap. There are horse races in the game, but it's a horse race, so you're just tapping X constantly for a whole multiplayer mode, and that's not fun, you know. And there's auto lock, so it's not particularly competitive, but it's not particularly casual because it's still got the amount of attention to detail that you'd find in the single player. So like looting still takes the same amount of time. It is a beta still, though, in fairness to them.
Right. I was going to say that it is in beta, but I mean, it seems like I'm sorry.
And I will say it is in better shape than Fallout 76. So I mean, hey, props.
Yeah, Fallout. We're going to get to Fallout 76 because there's more drama there, obviously, to talk about in the news section. Well, that's interesting. I will be interested. I assume the beta will not be very different from the normal online mode for Red Dead. I think they did a similar thing with Grand Theft Auto where it just kind of rolled from beta into like its normal release. Yeah,
they're probably just going to tweak the economy and you know, certain stats and certain modes.
So we'll see. Well, all right. And as far as Battlefield 5, did you play the campaign at all?
No, I haven't touched it. I never really touched Battlefield campaigns or Call of Duty campaigns. I've always been the person who's like, I've got better stuff to play single player wise than this.
Sure.
You know, I liked Battlefield 1's single player, but like...
Me too.
I don't know. Maybe I'll jump into it this week.
I downloaded it because EA sent us copies, and I downloaded it, but I haven't played it yet. And I think I'll probably just wait until I get back because, I am going away for a little while. So I'll play it when I get back in the middle of December. But I played Spyro 3. I'm working my way through that. I'm kind of hitting a wall now where I'm like, I don't really want to play this anymore. I'm so far through. I got to just see it through. Because then I'll have that really exciting moment where I can just delete it from my console and never look at it again, but have all 3 platinum trophies in it. So that'll be an exciting moment for me.
3 is very, very bloated. There's a lot of stuff in 3.
I don't like the kangaroo character very much.
Oh, no. I love the kangaroo character. Sheila?
Annoying. Sheila, yeah. Sheila the kangaroo. Sheila. And then there's the
bird. The penguin with the FPS penguin.
Yeah. It's a little weird. Like, and because I just skip all the story scenes, like all of them, I have no idea what's going on in this world. And I really, again, do like how cohesive it feels like, where it feels like I've just been playing one game for 35 hours. And I kind of enjoy that. There's just something nice about these collectathons, like I said. You know, I think Snake Pass was one, and Yooka-Laylee, and I downloaded a Hat in Time last year. I was looking for something like this. I don't want to play this all the time.
No.
But I was looking for something like this. So there's that. And more Tetris Effect. Still excellent. Still a lot of fun in VR and normally. I'll be interested to see what you think of it in VR. And then I went back and been playing Velocity 2X, which came out in 2014 by a British studio called Future Lab. And Velocity Ultra was the first game in the Velocity series that was on PS3 and Vita. And it's basically this, top-down, speed-based, grueling, score-chasing shooter with some side-scrolling elements. Really fun.
It was free on PS Plus, I think, in 2014 or 2015, so a bunch of people have it already. And I never got the platinum in it, and I have the platinum in the original Velocity, which was a very hard platinum to get. So I wanted to get this one and just been messing around with that as well. But as I told you when you arrived, I have a to-do list a mile long in anticipation of my trip, and I'm actually all caught up on the to-do list as of now. So just not a lot of time for games, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Just not a lot of time for games. So when I get back, I'll be digging through everything else. And remember, we've kind of put off our Game of the Year episode, which we were going to do earlier. We were maybe even going to do it in the middle or at the end of December. We're going to do that in January. So it will give us enough time to play our games, which I'm excited about. We have a question from Jake Whitaker about Red Dead Online, but we already covered it. But Jake, I did want to acknowledge you nonetheless, let you know that I did write you down here in our planning document, but we're never going to hear what you actually had to say, which is a little sad for you, I guess. A little sad for you, but we did answer your question. Chris, let's get into the news, if you don't mind. There's about 10 items this week. I think a few more. Nothing too crazy, but the first item that I wanted to lead off with, Chris, was something that is growing in intensity in the PlayStation ecosystem, and something that I think we need to acknowledge.
No, absolutely.
Number one, over the last few months, a furor has been growing with PlayStation gamers, particularly those who primarily or only play Japanese-developed games, because a series of instances occurred indicating that Sony may be censoring its games moving forward, and that the censorship is being based on a Western standard instead of being judged on a case-by-case basis or through the lens of the society in question. Now we seem to have confirmation that Sony is indeed censoring games and doing so universally. Website One Angry Gamer has relayed a report from Japanese website Abitsu, which has a quote from Atsushi Morita, Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan's president. Here's what he said, quote, regarding the regulation of the depiction of content, it's simply a matter of matching global standards. As for the freedom of expression, we have to think about what might, and this is an ellipsis here, we have to think about what might be unpleasant for children and shield them from those things, while also thinking and assessing of ways to find a balance, end quote. The website reports that games ranging from Omega Labyrinth Z and Mary Skelter 2 to Yagari Suno Yunasan, which I know that Chris is really excited about, and Nora to Oju to Norenuko Heart, which I know Chris is also really excited about.
Thank Christ I don't have to pronounce these.
Have been censored recently in ways they probably wouldn't have been even a few months ago, and that even upcoming Senran Kagura games will be censored. According to Kotaku, Kenichiro Takaki, the lead of Senran Kagura series, noted in an interview in Japan, quote, recently, regulation of sexual depictions has gotten stronger globally, and taking that into account, it's been said games need to be made so that they don't cause misunderstandings, ellipsis. But yet, because there are people who want to see that kind of content, and there are those like us who want to make it, I'd like to think about how to skillfully navigate our way through this. Have you been paying attention to this, and what do you make of all this? Because it seems like Sony is maybe starting to do away, particularly with the Fanservice sort of PlayStation games that the ecosystem has been well known for, mostly since the PS3 and Vita eras, where these games, this has kind of been a home for them. And without PlayStation being a home for these kinds of games, I think most of these players are going to go to Steam, which is unfortunate for PlayStation. So what do you think?
To me, it's weird because we already have systems in place to ensure that anything that is too suggestive for children don't make it into the hands of children in the first place. We already have ratings boards. We already have game ratings. So to me, instead of censoring a game, why not just look at a game and be like, oh, that's pretty suggestive, put an M on it, is how I feel about it. Like, why does it need to necessarily, why do you have to have a game go through your process and be like, okay, well, this is a more M-rated experience, change it? That seems weird to me, personally. Like, I don't really play these games at all. I don't care about them. They're not really on my radar at all, but that mentality is odd to me.
I'm a little troubled because it's a hard conversation to have about this, because a lot of the stuff, and this is true, a lot of the stuff that people are up in arms about are the fanservice games that seem to represent sexual depictions of like teenage people and maybe skewing a little young, and the mores between societies and how that's more acceptable in Japan than it is here. And we've kind of, again, named it fan service, which really means something very specific in anime and in video games. And these depictions, while I guess protected speech, or should be protected speech, I suppose, in fictional form in some way, as they've been for years, is still an interesting hill to die on for some people. Like, it's certainly an interesting conundrum, because you want to have the freedom to express yourself. It's just a video game. It's not real life.
Yeah.
But the depictions aren't always tasteful. And by Western standards, a lot of these things, if they were better known to wider audiences, if like parents were thinking about Xseed games and Axis games the way they were thinking about Call of Duty and stuff, they would be probably a little more disturbed by it. So I understand where Sony's going with this, but I understand also why people are troubled by it. So it's kind of a 6 1/2 dozen to the other situation for me where I'm like, I don't know exactly why you want to die on this hill. It's a little bit weird that you want to die on this hill, but I also understand that you don't want the erosion of what is allowable, I suppose, because then it can start to seep into things that are considered a little more normal. But if you look at some of these, I've played some of these games for review, and I used to get sent these games. And, I remember, I think I've talked about the Vita game Monster Monpiece, which is like a totally ridiculous game where you're rubbing girls and taking their clothes off and stuff. And it's, I understand you were saying giving it an M rating. These games would probably get an AO rating, and I think that that's the problem, is that Sony doesn't, by policy, carry AO games. So those things are relegated only to Steam, because Xbox and Nintendo obviously won't carry them either. But this creates problems, for Sony's audience.
It's a weird situation because I don't really pay attention to that marketplace at all. Like, I've seen some examples of games where I'm like, okay, I don't want to play that. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not the person who's supposed to be telling other people what they can and can't play. So it's just like, just do what you want, I guess. I don't care.
We'll monitor.
I don't fucking care. I still think put an M on it is appropriate. Or put an AO on it. Do something like that where it's more like, okay, well, this is how the world is. This is an AO game. And then they'll have to go back and do it. Don't be like, we just can't allow these on the platform in the first place. Give them a way to put them on the platform.
It just seems like something unnecessary for them to worry about. Although I think it signals maybe what we'll be dealing with PS5, which is just fewer of these games. And so these games find themselves in a different ecosystems. And I do think that ultimately hurts Sony. Like, there are publishers, niche publishers of PlayStation games that really exist only in this ecosystem. But then again, it's not Sony or up to Sony to guarantee the survival of these different firms. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But I did want to acknowledge that because a lot of people have been writing in about it and talking about it. And these aren't games that we necessarily play. But I do think that it's a mixture of complete distaste and a legitimate worry about the erosion of what will and will not be allowable. But again, go look at some of these games before you get too up in arms about it, because it's pretty, some of the stuff is pretty, and I hate this word, by the way. I fucking hate this word, but it's pretty gross stuff. And I hate the word gross because people have just destroyed that word.
Yeah.
That's gross.
Every word is destroyed. I can't think of a word that hasn't been destroyed in the last 10 years.
Number 2. Sony has revealed the free games PlayStation Plus subscribers will gain access to for the month of December 2018. If you have an active PS Plus account, you can grab the horror game Soma and the racing game Onrush for free on PlayStation 4. PS3 gamers can download space shooter Sterindin Classic and visual novel Steins Gate, while PS Vita players can acquire side-scrolling Metroidvania-like action game Iconoclasts, which will also give you the PS4 version for free, and Papers, Please, the popular adventure game. Remember that even if you don't intend on playing any of these games now, you can still go onto the PlayStation Store and add them to your download list for free to play later, so long as you have an active PS Plus account. That should be within everyone's monthly ritual, is to go on to PlayStation Store and just knock those into your download list. So if you want them later, you can play them. You never know. You never know. And then, I mean, if you've been with PS Plus since the beginning, it's going on like 7 or 8 years now, you have access to like a lot of games that you never paid for. So it's a good idea to do that. You could theoretically just never pay for a game. And stay somewhat busy. I don't know how much you'd enjoy yourself. So keep an eye out for those. By the time this goes live, or when we're recording this, even these games are already available, I think. So make sure to grab them. Number 3, retailer GameStop has published its most recent financial or fiscal report, I should say, and it's not good. IGN has relayed the numbers, which shows a net loss of $488.6 million for the company. A disastrous showing considering the numbers reflect a one-time $700 million profit from the sale of Spring Mobile, which GameStop once owned. So the loss is actually more like over $1 billion. However, if you jump into the numbers further, they're mixed. Console sales are up 12.8%, new software sales are up 10.9%, and peripheral sales are up 32.6%. Pre-owned sales are down 13.4%, however, and that's where GameStop squeezes much of its profit margin from, as there's not a lot of money made in new hardware and software sales. And this is funny because someone, I think, wrote in about this last week. I think we talked a little bit about this, and I said I couldn't really speak to their health. I guess we can speak a little bit more to their health now. They're fine. They're going to exist, and they're selling off assets and trying to remain nimble. And the sales, new sales are up. New sales are up. Console sales up. Software sales up. So I know that a lot of you still shop at GameStop.
I go to GameStop still sometimes.
You
More
would.
as like a museum kind of thing. Kind of walk around and be like, this is nice. It's going to be weird when this is gone.
Yeah.
And then I walk out.
You don't ever buy anything at the GameStop?
Not really. I can't think of the last time. I went there recently trying to find like a PS3 or a 360. So like one of the old ones, because I have a bunch of these discs that I can't play on anything. Then I'm like, I should probably remedy that. But they didn't have any, so I'm out. Gone.
That's fair enough. Number 4, Chris. Loot boxes have caused drama in the gaming world for several years now, and it appears that the FTC itself, the Federal Trade Commission, is going to get involved, particularly because of the gambling and predatory connotations of the loot box economy. Kotaku reports on a hearing in Washington, D.C., in which New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan notes, quote, "Given the seriousness of the issue, I think it is in fact time for the FTC to investigate these mechanisms to ensure that children are being adequately protected and to educate parents about potential addiction or other negative impacts of these games," end quote. She noted this after citing a British report that found nearly 1 in 3 children in the UK have paid for a loot box. She asked FTC Chairman Joseph Simons if his organization would want to look into it, and he answered in the affirmative. So it appears the American government is going to join the swelling movement to regulate loot boxes in some way, though we'll need to wait to see what moves the FTC actually makes. I don't know how I feel about this because this will be the first time that the American government has really been involved in gaming since the ESRB creation.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know, ESRB was created in the mid-90s as a reaction to Night Trap and Mortal Kombat and these other games where the government was basically like, either you regulate this or we will come in and regulate it for you. And so the ESRB is actually an independent body. It is not governmentally run, but that was by threat. The industry figured it out themselves. They all got together and the ESRB still exists today. This seems like it's going to be something that could be pretty serious for the video game industry. And I will be surprised if EA and others are not heavily lobbying against this already in Washington.
I know. They definitely... Isn't it hilarious, by the way, that Night Trap was one of those games? Because Night Trap, when you look at it now, is like hilariously not... It's the lamest thing I've ever seen.
No, it's awful. And it just came to Vita a few weeks ago for people that are not familiar with it. Night Trap was a game in the FMV game movement, which was basically this way to play kind of interactive real life games on your VCR.
It was a full motion video game.
Yeah.
It was on Switch too.
Yeah, they re-released it because it was I think it is recently, I think last year was the 25th anniversary of it, I think.
Yeah, which is awesome because in that hearing, in those hearings back in the day, one of the Nintendo reps was like, "You'll never see Night Trap on a Nintendo console." When they have like special 25th year anniversary.
I know, liars. Number 5, the drama surrounding Fallout 76 is continuing unabated with word that the special Power Armor Edition, which costs $200, has a component which customers are less than happy about. Customers are particularly upset about the duffel bag that came with the set, which is apparently cheaply made and of a low quality, far lower than what was promised. Bethesda in return has offered any disgruntled player that bought the special edition 500 atoms, which is in-game currency that can barely buy anything of value, essentially acting as a quick $5 voucher. Fallout 76 price has already been slashed nearly in half and sits at a 52 on Metacritic with a 2.6 user review. Fallout 76 is the lowest rated game developed by a Bethesda-owned studio ever, according to the aggregator.
Man!
Paulo Nogueira, how do you say that? Paulo Nogueira? Paulo Nogueira.
Yeah, it's fine. I give up.
Says, "Hey, Colin and Chris, how do you guys feel this whole Fallout 76 debacle fares in comparison with the No Man's Sky fiasco? Do you think Bethesda is in their position of a bigger company than Hello Games can get away with bad decisions, such as not issuing refunds, for example, or that stance will undoubtedly harm them in some way, shape, or form? What do you think, Chris? Because this fiasco, it's hard for me to know with the Power Armor situation if this is something that is really worth being upset about, or if it's just another thing that people feel like they should be upset about since the game itself is in such bad shape."
No, I've looked into it. It's pretty justified because the problem is the promotional material says it's not necessarily that it's a bag that is that comes across or that is cheaper than it comes across in the promotional image. It's just a completely different material. Like the promotional image for the Power Armor Edition advertises a canvas bag. And what people have been getting was this shitty like nylon bag that just like comes apart anytime you use it. And it's just straight up, that's lying. Like that's not, you've just straight up advertised, you falsely advertised. And the problem is that their excuse was, oh, well, nylon was too expensive to make. So don't advertise that, or at least let everybody know before the game comes out that that's what the change is.
They really are eating some shit on this game.
Man.
They really are eating it.
This is the biggest blunder of a video game release I've seen in quite a while.
And
like even since, I think even No Man's Sky had a better time. Because No Man's Sky was just kind of, okay, well, this game was not the game that was promised, but that was it. Literally it. This is, the game's not as promised, the collector's edition isn't as promised, it's selling horrendously, it's on sale a week after it comes out, burning pretty much everybody who was an early adopter of it.
It's a rough thing to watch happen, and Bethesda is just the last company that I would have expected this to happen, but I really do think that when you chase these trends, and that's what they were doing,
yeah,
I am sympathetic to this argument. I am, because I understand what people mean when they say like, well, you promised us one thing, or this is what you usually deliver, and then you're just trying to give us something else that we did not want and we did not ask for. And it's okay to do that with an ancillary studio. They did that with The Elder Scrolls Online, which is not created by Bethesda Game Studios. It's created by another team, and that's a pretty successful game, but nothing was lost there. There was no loss in translation. They weren't saying like, this is Fallout 4, but online. This is Fallout 76. It's kind of made by us. It's kind of made by this other team. We're going to pretend that we kind of made it even though we didn't. Now we're going to have to take all of the shit for it because we pretended we made it. I don't know what they were thinking. Other than, I mean, I know exactly what they were thinking. They wanted to make Fallout Online and make lots of money off of it, but I actually think that they've done themselves a great injury and a great disservice by even putting this game out, and I wonder if there's a lot of regret over there now.
It's a mess.
It's interesting. It's a mess, but it's, from an analyst point of view and from our podcast point of view, it's quite interesting watching this kind of unravel. Bethesda just is so much more buttoned up than this usually, and it makes me a little concerned about the decision making going over there. And if you are excited about Starfield and you're excited about the Elder Scrolls 6 and all of that, that's fantastic, but I would be incredibly skeptical. This has infested Bethesda's offerings with incredible skepticism now, and they haven't really been doing great sales-wise in a while either. So people like Dishonored 2, but it didn't sell well. People, Prey was kind of mixed and it didn't sell very well. Wolfenstein didn't sell very well. So they're kind of in this weird space where I would really be interested to know how pleased they are with their performance overall and if they're actually damaging their brand by releasing a game like this that no one wanted and no one asked for. And I understand and appreciate and respect that people are having fun with it, but that's a limited number of people.
It just wouldn't have been so bad if it just worked. If the game was just working, even if it was bare bones, and even if it was light on story, and even if it was just what you got, but just more smooth, I think everything would have been fine. Because they were pretty clear about it. I had my expectations pretty tempered. I knew what I was getting. Okay, it's an online Fallout that doesn't have NPCs. It's probably going to be more of a sandbox kind of Rust experience. I'm down for that. I like Fallout. I like the lore of this place. I like the feel of this place. But the fact that it's just broken beyond... I saw this glitch video on YouTube where apparently you can equip and unequip a left leg real quick and then watch your carry weight go down below 0. So you can carry infinite amount of things without actually becoming over encumbered, which is something that the server just can't actually allow without crashing. So it's just basic things that just don't work.
It makes me wonder if this game will be whipped into shape or not. Paolo asked, how do we feel about this compared to No Man's Sky? I agree with you. First of all, there's multiple comparisons we can make in one way or another as we can compare and contrast. First of all, No Man's Sky sold appreciably much better. I think No Man's Sky sold millions of copies. I don't think Fallout 76 is going to. Now, I don't want to say that that's an excuse. A lot of people felt really burned because they bought No Man's Sky. They bought into the hype. The good news about Fallout 76 is I don't think anyone was really buying into it from the very beginning. I don't think anyone bought into it. And when we're already seeing this, Chris, we're already seeing the crush that I was talking about. It's happening sooner than I thought, and with games that I didn't think were necessarily going to be affected, where people just don't have time to play a lot of these games. It bodes, you know what it bodes really poorly for is Anthem.
That's what I think Anthem's the next one.
So we'll find out.
We'll see.
Number 6. We've been slowly but surely hearing about Western studios pivoting to next-gen hardware, presumably PlayStation 5 among them, but we now have word that Japanese devs are also making the move. Website Gamatsu reports that what is only identified as a, quote, major game company, end quote, is looking for localizers, translators, and planners for a, quote, new console game, end quote, or, quote, next-generation hardware, end quote. A separate employment listing notes that another studio is also working on, quote, a next-generation hardware title, end quote. These are only the second references to Japanese devs working on next-gen hardware after last week's report that someone who worked at Square Enix's Luminous Productions has also been working on a PS5 game. So it's happening. People are brazenly and openly hiring for these projects now. So we are getting closer and closer and closer. Used to people that have been working on these projects for a while have been being hired in secret and under NDA and all that kind of stuff. So it seems to be a little more blatant, which is pretty exciting stuff. Number 7, Starbreeze Studios, the Swedish team most famously behind 2007's The Darkness, 2009's The Chronicles of Riddick Assault on Dark Athena, 2012's Syndicate, 2013's Payday 2, and 2018's Overkill's The Walking Dead, has officially filed for reconstruction, sort of a version of bankruptcy, in order to protect itself from completely going out of business. Quote, the decision is based on a shortage of liquidity and deemed to be a necessary step to give the company the time needed to negotiate long-term financial solutions and implement changes in the organization and operations, end quote, according to a press release the company put into the wild. The press release notes that those employed at Starbreeze will currently continue to be paid, though payments to any outside vendors will cease. So it looks like Starbreeze either needs to get a new contract for a new game very quickly, or unfortunately they're going to go out of business. And that's sad because Starbreeze in Sweden has some tangential connections to Machine Games, the studio that works on Wolfenstein that is owned by Bethesda. A lot of them left Starbreeze to found Machine Games, so there's some shared genetics there, and we're hoping for the best for Starbreeze. Very talented studio.
Yeah, I really liked The Darkness back when it came out.
And the Chronicles of Riddick, I didn't play the second one. The first one, which they didn't make, was great. Syndicate, which was an EA published game, was supposed to be very good. I remember going to an event in Las Vegas for Syndicate and what was Amalur, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. And the guys from Starbreeze were really excited and really into the game, but I don't think Syndicate did very well. It was presumably a pretty good game, though. Number 8, this one's for you, Chris. Fortnite's domination isn't only continuing, it's growing. Good. Bloomberg reports that the free-to-play Battle Royale shooter now has 200 million players. For context, Epic Games reported 125 million players this past June and 40 million way back in January. So, for context, in a year, they've added 160 million players in less than a year. 160 million players added.
It's ridiculous.
It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. Enjoy what you want to enjoy. But that's another one of the games. That's another one of the reasons why this stuff's just not surviving out there. If you're playing, why would you play Battlefield 5? Why would you play Fallout 76? Why are you going to play Anthem? Why are you going to play The Division?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just Fortnite. It's awesome. I love it. Fucking God, ring me up.
Number 9. While gamers around the world are eagerly awaiting announcements from this year's Game Awards, you can count Rocksteady Games out of the event. Sefton Hill, the studio's director, noted that he and his team won't be at the show, that they aren't revealing anything, and that the game they're working on isn't Superman, which has been widely rumored. Rocksteady, of course, made its name with 3 Batman games, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight, and it's safe to assume they're going to stay in the realm of DC Comics. We just don't know what they're going to do next. And Cole Boulis wrote into us on Patreon, like you can, said Rocksteady just announced that their next game will not be at the Game Awards next week, and that it's not a Superman game. Since Rocksteady's last game, Arkham Knight, came out 3.5 years ago, and we don't even know what their next game is, do you guys have any theories, have any insight into what it might be? Do you have any idea of what you might want from them? Because they are an incredibly talented studio. I would have preferred them to just leave superheroes behind and do something proprietary.
Yeah, I have no idea. I think they could make a pretty cool stealth game. I would love to see them try to make a stealth game, particularly because all we have is Hitman right now, and Splinter Cell is just kind of swimming in a pool of nothingness, like out there waiting to be rescued. I don't know what the hell is going on with them. I think they can make a pretty badass stealth game, or just something else. I presume that they're probably going to work on DC Comics stuff, because that's what they're known for. But they've been pretty tight-lipped. I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll see
what the hell they're working on.
It has been a while.
I wonder if it'll be a launch game.
It could be. Well, I'll be very interested to see what they end up working on. Very talented team over there. And, Arkham Knight was a little underwhelming, I thought. So I'll be interested to see if they can redeem themselves. Like the whole car combat, driving the Batmobile thing around, I didn't like that at all.
I didn't like being forced to do it. I liked the car when I wanted to use the car, because sometimes I wanted to use the car. But when you're just like, hey, Batman, it's Alfred. Oh, hey, Alfred. Batman, you got to use the car. And then you just kind of like, damn it, it's annoying. I thought everything else about that game was great, though, to be honest.
I like the side quests, how they deal with introducing random characters. Like, I don't remember his name, but he's like a dude in or the Firefly, I think his name is.
Yeah.
Where you're chasing him
blowing up buildings.
Yeah, like there's like cool stuff where it's just like little one-off side quests that introduce you to these characters that I don't know comics, so
yeah,
I like Batman's universe a lot.
There's a lot of interesting things they did with the Joker in that game too. Like the way they introduced him into the story, and the way that like gargoyles would like change into him if you turn the camera certain ways. I thought that was like super neat.
Yeah, it was very cool. It was very cool. High production values. I felt like they felt a pressure to make the game more open world and more mobile after Arkham City, which felt big but a little stymieing in terms of how you got around it. But I think that they made a mistake in doing that. I don't think it was necessary. And so, the Batmobile missions were just so off kilter for me in that it ruined it. I still think Arkham Asylum, the first one, is still the most impressive one because it was so unexpected. Great game. And I always felt bad for Arkham Origins, which I think WB Montreal made because that's like the bastard Arkham game that no one gives credit for, but apparently it's pretty good. I've never played it.
It's not bad at all. It's way better than it has any right to be, considering I don't think Batman's voice or the Joker's voice came back to voice in that game, and it sounds like actually really great. I think Troy Baker did the Joker.
Yeah, he did.
In that one, and he did a great job. I was like, what? It's like, it's kind of shocking.
Number 10. In a random turn of events, it appears that WayForward Technologies, the American studio best known for its old-school-inspired games like Shantae, DuckTales Remastered, and Mighty Switch Force, has joined the larger team working on Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, the Castlevania Symphony of the Night-inspired Metroidvania, finally set for launch in 2019. In a post on Bloodstained's Kickstarter page, creative director Iga notes that, quote, WayForward will be helping the development team realize my vision for this game. Maybe I am even more excited than everyone else. With their help, Bloodstained will become an even better game. I was talking with the team just before writing this comment, and with WayForward's help, they have been busy helping to improve the game and fix any bugs that pop up. Speaking of which, there's a really tough one that's making the game crash that needs to be fixed before the game reaches everyone. So we are scything through them all.
I like the honesty of that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Although Phil Crone wrote in and said, "Hey guys, Iga announced that WayForward joined the development team for Bloodstained. Is this damn game ever coming out?" It is important to note that the game has been delayed twice. And I am a little concerned that WayForward is... I like WayForward. I think they're great. But you're having an entirely new dev team join now this late. This is already being made by another very capable team at Indie Creates. But we have to remember that Indie Creates also made Mighty Number 9. Indie Creates made Mega Man 9 and 10. They also made Mighty Number 9. So it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, but I'm a little concerned. I think it's a little unusual that WayForward is just now in the game. It
is odd. It is an odd just kind of hat to throw in the ring, but it's also a Kickstarter game. And whenever I look at anything that's related to Kickstarter games, any semblance of reason or knowledge that I've gathered up to that point completely goes out the window, it seems. Hey, welcome to Sony's E3 conference. We're announcing a Kickstarter campaign for Shenmue. And you're like, I guess this is our universe now, I suppose.
Yeah,
like,
it's weird.
Kickstarter's a weird ecosystem in general.
I'm nervous about this game. Like, if you guys aren't able to complete this game, it's already been delayed. You already canceled, like, the Vita version of it. And the 3DS version, I think, is canceled.
Oh, right, yeah.
You pushed it multiple times. Now you're bringing in another team late into the game to help you squash bugs and stuff like that.
Well, hey, dude, the game's crashing constantly. We gotta get somebody else on.
I have a bad feeling for some reason. Like, I hope it turns out great. I am confident that they will mold it into something great after the lessons of Mighty Number 9, which I think everyone's paid attention to and been very cognizant of in the Kickstarter realm, because nothing is guaranteed, even if you have a great team working on a game. And so this move makes me nervous. You don't hear about this very often. I mean, well, there are always contract studios working on games, and you see them in credits of every game you play, but announcing this publicly and stuff like that, I don't know. And it's not a good look for Indie Creates. And
it's a weird thing to say publicly, for sure. I'm sure this probably happens actually pretty often, but like, maybe don't say it. Maybe don't say there's a game-breaking bug that is crashing the game every time it starts. That's not great.
We had to bring in a whole other team just to solve this bug.
Imagine Bethesda was like that. Say, hey, it's not working.
Bethesda should have hired WayForward Technologies.
Yeah.
Number 11 is a wrap-up with everything kind of too small for its own little section here of our news.
This is where it ends.
Free-to-play RPG Path of Exile, which was recently announced as coming to PS4 by year's end, has been suddenly delayed until February of 2019, according to the according to the official website for the game. Gamatsu reports that RPG Code Realize Wintertide Miracles will be coming to Western PS4s on February 14th. That's Valentine's Day. EA-owned studio BioWare is teasing a Dragon Age-related announcement for sometime in December, likely about the next game in the series, though we don't know what to expect or when to expect it. I want to jump in here real quick and say, I wonder if they're making this Dragon Age announcement to distract everyone from Anthem. And Anthem's beta, I think, is coming soon. It's closed beta as well as imminent.
Yeah, I totally forgot about it.
Push Square reports that Hajime Tabata's new game dev team is called JP Games, and that will have more information about the studio and its game next year. Tabata, of course, was the director of Final Fantasy XV and a major driving force at Square Enix for some years. And finally, THQ Nordic has purchased yet another IP, Carmageddon. There was only a single core Carmageddon game on PC, PS1, and N64 in the late 90s, and it was previously owned by Stainless Games, who released Carmageddon Reincarnation on PC in 2015. THQ Nordic continuing to annoy the shit out of me. By the way, I should look this up really quick, but Darksiders 3 was one of their first major releases.
Yeah.
And it came out, I think, last week. People are playing it and enjoying it. I want to say that it's not doing very well on Metacritic.
On Metacritic?
Yeah, like I don't think people are really feeling it, but I could be wrong. I'm looking it up now on PlayStation 4, Metacritic score of 65. But a 7.4 user score.
Oh, weird.
So I don't think it's doing very well.
No. Huh.
According to Metacritic, it is the 34th most discussed PS4 game of 2018.
Oh, okay.
The 14th most shared PS4 game of 2018.
I think THQ Nordic is kind of lining themselves up to be like, hey, you remember AA games? Let's just do that. I think that's honestly probably the only thing that I could think of that they could probably be doing. Spending as little money as possible developing games that are just kind of fine.
I think that's got to be it at this point. Carmageddon?
Yeah, I can't think of it.
They paid someone for that IP? How much do you think they paid for that? I'm not even trying to be disrespectful, but how much is that IP worth? $10,000? I'm not even joking. Like, what is what is the Carmageddon IP worth? $25,000? It's not like, why are you buying these IP?
I don't know, man.
My theory is even deeper, but also simpler than this, which is that they're buying these IPs simply to have these back catalog of games. It's like when they bought Kingdoms of Amalur. Remember, they bought Kingdoms of Amalur without the rights to publish the only Kingdoms of Amalur game.
Yeah.
Which EA owns the rights to. Reckoning. Very weird.
I don't know what they're doing.
I just don't believe that this works out well.
No, probably not.
55 games in development, by the way. 55 games.
Watch them all somehow come out.
That would be awesome. I don't care if they're good or they're bad, but if all 55 of those games come out, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Just absolutely amazing stuff.
At once.
Now, Chris, according to my count, there are, I think, 26 or 27 new games coming to PS4 and Vita.
Oh, my God.
And for people that weren't listening last week, some people were relieved that we didn't do the drop last week. Too bad. We're doing the drop this week. The drop is back on PlayStation 1.
Yeah, now it's like twice as long.
And it's so long, and there's so many games on it. And we have to read it. I mean, there's just not that much news to get through. We can wrap up the episode now if you want, but you don't want that.
Nah.
Audience, you like your episodes to reach about 90 minutes if we can do that for you. So,
all right.
Chris, do you want to lead off or do you want me to lead off?
Sure, I'll go.
Okay, hit me.
Arca's Path VR comes to PSVR. Trapped in the enchanting simulated world of Arca, it is up to you to find a path through the labyrinth and break free. With intuitive I thought it was intuitive hands. With intuitive hands-free gameplay, Arca's Path is an atmospheric VR gaming experience.
All right. Astrology and Horoscope Premium comes to PS4.
Didn't we read this one?
I think so. 2019 Astrology and Horoscopes Premium is the most luxury. This is what it says. Is the most luxury astrology, horoscope, and numerology application. That doesn't even make any... Does anyone read this shit? Learn your love horoscope in style. Get detailed daily predictions of tomorrow and yesterday based on biorhythms. I almost want to download that.
Okay, this pisses me off because there are 3 games in a row that are the same.
Yes.
What is this? What is
Atelier Maruru.
Okay. Atelier Maruru, the apprentice of Arland DX, comes to PS4. Third release in the Arland series, Princess of the Small Frontier, Country of Arts, Maruru plans to use alchemy to stimulate the growth of her small country. Use synthesis, explore, and battle to increase the population within the time limit and boost the advancement of the kingdom.
Atelier Maruru, the apprentice of Arland... Oh, I'm sorry. Atelier Maruru, the alchemist of Arland DX, comes to PS4. First release in the Arland series, the main character, Rorona, must save her atelier from being closed by the kingdom, using synthesis, exploration, and battle. Gain recognition for the atelier and save it from being closed.
Having a fucking heart attack. Atelier Totori, the adventurer of Arland DX, comes to PS4. The second release in the Arland series, in a search for her missing mother, Totori tours the world of Arland as an adventurer accompanied by her friends. Use synthesis, explore, and battle to fulfill requests. Raise her rank as an adventurer and venture into brand new lands.
I must say that actually it's Atelier Maruru, Atelier Rorona is the one that I read. It wasn't Atelier, and then Atelier Totori. So those all 3 come to PS4. They were PS3 games and Vita games, in case you're curious.
Right.
The Atelier, there's a lot of Atelier games. A lot of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
I mean, I would assume.
Battle Princess Madeline comes to PS4. Battle Princess Madeline is a game that follows the journey of a young knight in training. Madeline and her ghostly pet dog, Fritzy. They set out on a journey to save her kingdom and her family from the clutches of an evil wizard.
Betty Bat's Treasure Hunt comes to PS4. Play as Betty Bat as she travels the world collecting gems. Tired of living in caves, the bats of the world have gathered up enough gems to buy a castle. You must reach your fellow bats and gather their gems before the birds have a chance to steal them.
Betty Bat, my favorite new character. Emerald Shores comes to Vita. Emerald Shores is a challenging 16-bit platformer with a bunch of twists. Level up, take on rewarding side quests, and play unique minigames. Unlock secret levels, raise a pet monster, fight an optional mega-leveled beast of a boss, and more. A lot to do in that game.
Yeah. Energy Cycle Edge comes to PS4 and Vita. Energy Cycle Edge is the sequel to the puzzle game Energy Cycle. The main idea is the same, but in Energy Cycle Edge, most part of puzzles are 3D. Okay, so I read that. I did read that right.
This is exactly as it was.
So you'll need a monitor. You'll need to monitor the colors within several linked layers, adding a new facet to the familiar gameplay.
Most part of puzzles are 3D. That's exactly what it said. I copy and paste these. Escape game Aloha comes to PS4. You are in a beautiful villa overlooking the sea in Hawaii. Find and combine items, solve puzzles, then escape. After the ending, you can play hide and seek with animals. Can you find them all? The fuck? I think this is also the third time we're about to read this next one.
Yeah, Gnome's Garden, New Home comes to PS4. Gnome's Garden, New Home, a continuation of the exciting fantasy strategy game about the world of gnomes. Obtain the Crystal of Eternal Light and return prosperity.
You're struggling over there.
So much of this is horrible.
Guns and Stories Bulletproof VR comes to PSVR. Guns and Stories Bulletproof is a dynamic and fun VR Western shooter that fully immerses players into the weird Wild West. Visit beautiful locations with Old Man Bill. It says Oldman, though, like as if it's Oldman Bill. Oldman. Like, it's not old man, like 2 words, it's Oldman Bill. And try many weapons under the rhythm of the dynamic music, jokes, and cynical humor.
Oh, good.
I'm a little... What is the weird... I don't even want to know what the weird Wild West is.
Yeah, that's
some pervy shit.
Hello Neighbor Hide and Seek comes to PS4. Hello Neighbor Hide and Seek follows the tragic story of the neighbor's family in this dramatic prequel to Hello Neighbor. The game explains events that lead up to the original stealth horror hit, Hello Neighbor.
Jagged Alliance Rage comes to PS4 at retail. Set 20 years after the first Jagged Alliance, this spin-off lets you experience a road trip into a jungle hell to test your mind and body to the limits.
Okay, so this one I'm happy about. Just Cause 4 comes to PS4 at retail. Just Cause 4 sees rogue agent Rico Rodriguez land in the... In what's in Solus?
I guess that's what it says.
In Solis. I'll say it that way. To hunt down the truth about his past at any cost, strap into your wingsuit, equip your fully customizable grappling hook, and get ready to bring the thunder.
You're excited about that.
It's got a grappling hook. They even put it in the description because they know how important that is.
That's a very important thing. The Last Remnant comes to PS4. Last released in 2008, The Last Remnant captured the hearts and minds of gamers with its enthralling story, countless characters, and intricate battle system. Now this classic RPG is back with a remastered version and is coming to PS4 with even more beautiful graphics, enhanced via an updated game engine.
Life of Pixel comes to PS4 and Vita. Join Pixel as he quests through gaming history, teleporting across the most iconic video game systems of generations past. He'll have to jump, dodge, and play smart if he wants to survive all the traps, puzzles, and enemies waiting to take him down at every turn.
That game looks really cool. It's been delayed many times. I think it is actually finally coming out. The publisher of the game is one of the guys at the publisher. It's like a small indie publisher, used to be the head of Sony San Diego. I'm excited to play it. I'm excited to check it out. The trailer's on PlayStation's YouTube channel, and it looks like a pretty cool game. I'm going to download it on Vita.
Yeah, it sounds cool.
All right, tell me how I do here on this. You are a Hispanic man.
Yes.
Monica Ia Guarda dos Colos comes to PS4.
More or less. That last one was a little bit weird.
Monica Ia Guarda dos Colos is a couch co-op game for 1 to 4 players with a focus on teamwork and cooperation, featuring the ability to play as a group with many heroes from the Brazilian IP Monica and Friends. Wait, so that's not even Spanish, that's Portuguese. Everyone has a different role to help defend the castles against the Smudge Horde.
The Smudge Horde?
What's even sadder is that you didn't recognize that as not being Spanish?
It's all the same, really. It's all a mess. Puerto Rican Spanish, Mexican Spanish, it's all the same like jumbled mess that neither party understands. You know, I took proper Spanish in high school, and I came home and I talked it to my Puerto Rican parents. They're like, "What the hell are you talking about? None of that is right." So it's all a crapshoot. Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom comes to PS4 at retail. Enjoy a colorful action-adventure game made alongside...
Do it. Say it.
Ryuichi Nishizawa. Christ. Creator of the original Wonder Boy and Monster World series. The game borrows the best from the classic series to deliver a fresh, modern adventure with fun gameplay, memorable music, and gorgeous hand-drawn animations. Right, Jesus.
Ryuichi Nishizawa. Mutineer Zero Road to Edgin comes to PS4. Mutineer Zero Road to Edgin, or actually, it's Eden. I wrote Edgin here in the thing. That's not a word.
Edgin.
Mutant Year Zero Road to Eden is a tactical adventure game combining turn-based combat with real-time exploration, story, stealth, and strategy. Explore a post-human Earth where mankind has been eradicated by climate change, nuclear war, and pandemics. Will your team of mutants survive the zone? Mankind has been eradicated by climate change, nuclear war, and pandemics. Holy shit.
That's so much bad.
Horrifying.
It's so much bad at once. Override, Mech City Brawl. I've actually seen trailers for this. It looks kind of neat. No gears, no glory. Control gigantic robots and duke it out across fantastic cityscapes in this 3D mech-based brawler. Epic and explosive battles await with distinctive mechs in local and online versus mode, party co-op with 2 to 4 players, and a single-player campaign. This reminds me a lot of War of the Monsters for the PS2, so it kind of makes me happy.
Persona 3 Dancing Moonlight comes to PS4 and Vita at retail, face-to-face with an enigmatic Velvet Room resident. The C's are forced to perform a mysterious dance party. Test your rhythm-based gameplay skills and dominate the dance floor.
Oh yeah? Well, Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight comes to PS4, Vita, and retail. Face to face with enigmatic Velvet Room residents, the Phantom Thieves are forced to perform at a mysterious dance party. Test your rhythm-based gameplay skills and steal some hearts on the dance floor.
They like barely switched that up at all. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Atlas is a little more thorough than that usually.
Yeah, well, they went from to Starlight from Moonlight, so it was +2, I guess.
Of course, these are kind of the sequels to Persona 4 Dancing All Night, which came to Vita originally and it is now on PS4, I think, which is a dancing game based on Persona 4. There is a collection, I think, Persona 3 and 5, that you can buy them together.
Oh, fantastic. Kill me.
If you want to. Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. Picture Party VR comes to PSVR. Classic draw and guess party fun with a unique VR twist. Gather your friends or family, draw with your head in VR instead of your hands, and have them look at the TV to guess what you were trying to draw.
That sounds like somebody loosely trying to describe it. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds comes to PS4 at retail. Land, loot, and outwit your opponents to become the last player left standing in a thrilling battle royale experience full of unexpected adrenaline-pumping moments.
You read that with much excitement. Much excitement. For people that don't know, that's PUBG. Finally coming to PS4.
PUBG.
Prison Boss VR comes to PSVR. Prison Boss VR is a crafting and training game that turns turning.
Yeah, that's
what it
that
says.
Is actually it turns turning.
Turns turning your VR space into a jail cell. Customize your cell as your reputation grows. Earn cash until you can't store it anymore and become the prison boss. This is a copy and paste of. There's an exclamation point in there. There's a comma and then an exclamation point. Does anyone at PlayStation Blog care about anything that is happening?
That would have killed me. I'm glad you got that one. Jesus.
That would have given you a meltdown.
Yeah, I would have died. Subnautica comes to PS4 at retail. Subnautica is an underwater adventure game set on an alien ocean planet. A massive open world full of wonder and peril awaits you. I heard this was pretty good.
It's supposed to be very good. Very good game.
And the last one.
Thronebreaker The Witcher Tales comes to PS4. Thronebreaker is a single-player role-playing game set in the world of The Witcher that combines narrative-driven exploration with unique puzzles and card battle mechanics. I didn't know that until until I actually read that. That's interesting. That guy, whatever his name is, that's suing CD Projekt must have also sold the rights or something. This is not a CD Projekt game. Sony is promoting that game a little bit on their PlayStation blog and on social media. It looks like the big releases this week that people would want to be paying attention to are Just Cause 4. Mm-hmm. You probably want to pay attention to that. The Last Remnant, I'm sure people are going to be excited about. Life of Pixel looks good. Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom looks excellent. The Persona dancing games, PUBG, Subnautica, and probably Thronebreaker. So quite a few games of note and quite a few games of no note. Now, Chris, it's a slow week. I don't want to manufacture and force news where there is none.
Yeah.
And because I posted 2 threads on Patreon. Again, remember, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand and have the ability to post in threads that I post each week so that I read your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas here on the show. But I posted 2 at the same time, one for this episode and one for the next episode. And so it kind of split the difference. We got like 50 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas for this episode. I've already used a few of them. So I'm only going to end with 3 questions from the audience. And then we're going to wrap it up. I don't want to just have an arbitrary length for our shows if there's nothing to talk about. I mean, there's just nothing really happening.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate quirk of timing, again, is that we're just not going to be here for the Game Awards. So we won't be able to talk about that. But we'll catch you up with everything.
Don't worry. I'll live tweet it.
Okay, good. Well, Chris will live tweet it then. Brock Smith wrote in and said, Microsoft seems to be buying studios in bulk left and right. And I feel the flawed assumption is that the directors and producers that have made those studios what they are come with them, which we know isn't always the case. People like Hideo, Hennig, Balrog, or Borlaug and Druckmann seem to have successfully spearheaded production and team visions throughout all odds and usually against a lot of internal resistance. What Sony needs to do is keep people at this caliber in their ecosystem seems to be of superior importance than bulk buying studios themselves, especially with people like Hennig and Bruce Straley, game director of the first Last of Us, gone and going into The Last of Us 2. What are your thoughts, having seen behind closed doors at Naughty Dog in particular, on what Sony needs to do to compete and move forward into next gen with meaningful, critically acclaimed exclusives? It's an interesting question because the names at the studios are the most important thing, but we often don't see them for what it is, and also how generationally these studios change over time. A great example is that Sony Santa Monica gave us the original God of War, headed up by David Jaffe and other people that are no longer there. Cory Barlog, who worked on God of War in a lesser role, left the studio, comes back, gives us a new God of War. Same team, different names, and different products. So
yeah.
I think that does indeed matter more than, it's the same thing with Tabata. We were talking about, Tabata leaving Square Enix and founding his new studio. Well, that matters a great deal for Square Enix. Square Enix's Luminous Productions and all of that are just not going to have the same push and pull with players without that name. So I do think the name is probably more important.
Especially any developer that's been around for a long time. I'm sure you've probably noticed, any of you being a listener, or even, they're strikingly different than they were even 10 years ago. Bungie is a very different Bungie today than they were in 2008, than they were in 98. That just happens. That's just part of the draw. I do still think it's important for them to, actually invest in studios, though. I don't think that diminishes that.
I do too. Just because you have to retain talent, but you also have to give them places to go and games to make. So that's part of the balancing act, and
IPs to work with.
That's exactly right. And so I think that, the fallout with Amy Hennig and Naughty Dog, which is really fascinating, and it's a traumatic thing because that did affect Naughty Dog's ability to deliver Uncharted 4 in a timely way, but some would argue that they delivered an even better game. And the unfortunate reality for Amy, who I consider a friend and who's very nice, always been very nice to me, but the reality is that Amy Hennig hasn't released a game since 2011, since Uncharted 3. And
she went to Visceral,
She went to Visceral, and then they kind of canned her game as well. And I don't know if she's ended up anywhere since then. She might just be taking a sabbatical and hanging out. She makes plenty of money. She doesn't need to make a decision right now, but it is about the names and about the talent. And that is true. We don't focus enough on that. And the interesting thing when we look at a company like Activision, a publisher like Activision, is that a lot of people don't realize and might not know this, is that Activision was founded in, at the turn of the 80s, when we were going into the 80s, to give voice and name to the people behind the games, to make them like the Steven Spielbergs of gaming. So on old Activision games, and EA did this too, you would often see like a person's name. This is where David Crane and these other guys, these famous old school developers, came from, where it would be like a David Crane game, a blah, blah, blah game. That does matter. It's the publisher less so. The studio does matter and the culture matters, but it's a really interesting insight that Brock wanted to kind of deliver to us here, because it is relevant and we don't look at that enough. And the great example, he brought up Kojima, but that's the best example of all. Kojima, Ego leaving Konami to a lesser extent, but when Kojima left Konami, that was basically the end of Konami having any draw with gamers anymore.
Yeah.
So super interesting thought, Brock. Thank you for submitting that. Scott Lammers wrote into us and said, let's rip on the PS Classic a bit. I just heard the ROMs are PAL versions of the games and that they use an open source emulator instead of making their own. It does seem a little lazy to me, but I don't have a ton of technical knowledge regarding this stuff. Is that really a big deal? I also saw an unboxing video. The PSC does not come with a power cable. What the fuck? Seriously? Did they do anything right regarding this thing? Okay. First of all, I take a little bit of issue with the power cable thing. The NES Classic didn't come with a power cable either. So it was a matter of you having to plug, or it didn't come with a brick, I think. You had to you could plug it into a cell phone brick, basically yourself. Or
yeah.
Everyone has these. I have like 8,000 of these cords now. So Nintendo didn't exactly deliver there either, so let's be fair. But have you been reading about the PlayStation Classic in terms of its emulation?
Yeah, I've seen fascinating new interpretations of the Final Fantasy VII Battle Swirl.
Yes.
That looks quite nauseating.
Yes, so what Chris is referencing here is that the Battle Swirl, when you go into a random battle in Final Fantasy VII, PlayStation's native hardware would make that into a circle and like a swirl, but the emulator is not able to deal with that, and I think a lot of it has to do with like the hertz it's running at and the frame rate and the version of the game, and so it's all jagged and fucked up. This thing really is embarrassing. It seems like it's actually like not necessarily not good. It's actually like an embarrassing half-assed attempt. Why did they do it like this? Why did they do this? This is so strange.
It's baffling. It honestly is like one of the most confusing things I've ever seen.
I don't know who wants this.
I'm actually flying home for the holidays. I'm just gonna get my PS1. I'm just going to grab my PlayStation 1 that I have still just sitting in my room and just bring it home. Because at this point, like, that's probably the only way I'm going to play these games in a non-fucked up capacity.
It's just very weird to me. It's just a very, very weird, strange...
But the fact that they're the PAL versions, that's also a very weird choice. And I know it doesn't necessarily apply specifically to this collection because Spyro isn't in it. But I specifically remember having a PAL version of Spyro, or at least playing one at some point. And it's kind of a shockingly different game. Like, Spyro is like way slower in the PAL version for some reason.
Again, I don't, Scott wrote into us and said he doesn't have technical knowledge, and neither do I. But I didn't really know this, actually, and I'm sure European players are more in tune with this. Because of the different technical standards in the different regions, frame rates weren't as high, and the fidelity of games were not high in European, or at the time with European televisions and European power, I guess, and the way they made European games. So by transferring these games in between regions, you have significant frame rate and running issues and lag issues and stuff, depending on the TVs that you were made for. Like, I think the NTCS standard that we use here in North America and in Japan is better. Like, I am legit confused about what the fuck is going on here. Because he said all of the games are PAL. That's not true. As far as I understand, 9 of them are, and 11 of them are NTCS. Or NTSC.
NTSC, yeah.
So you're just bouncing these between...
It's the weirdest decision. One of the weirdest decisions in this whole thing. What a mistake.
I think it was a mistake, too, because... people accuse Sony all the time of stealing shit from Nintendo, and they've stolen a lot of things from Nintendo, there's no doubt about it. But this is one of those things that they didn't, as we said several episodes ago. This has been going on. These consoles, these all-in-one consoles, are predate NES Classic by a long shot, and they had an opportunity to really do this right. They're charging $99.99 for this thing. It comes with 20 games. Half of them are bootleggish, running on an emulator that they didn't even make themselves, an open source emulator. It's not dealing with it right. No power plug, like was said, which is, I guess, relevant to some people. Just not a good look.
Yeah, I suggest looking up. There's a great video on. There's a channel called Digital Foundry that does like fantastic work.
Owned by Eurogamer.
They analyze like frame rates and like performance on a lot of games and a lot of systems. And they did one on the PS Classic, and it's eye opening how insanely mishandled this whole thing was. Which is a shame because they really had an opportunity to innovate on the classic console. They really could have, like, imagine how cool it would have been to have a PlayStation Classic that could connect to the PSN. That would have been actually innovative and actually kind of cool.
Exactly, and it reminds me of PlayStation TV, which was the Vita. It's basically, no one had it, but they released a Vita that hooked up to your TV, that it connected to the PlayStation Network, and you could play some Vita games, PS Classics, and stuff through this little machine that was no bigger than a deck of cards. And it's almost like they were there. They were, like, halfway there already. Like, make a device that doesn't rely on processing power, maybe use cloud computing or something. Maybe it's even more expensive than this, but like you said, they had the opportunity to do something really special here, and I think they've really fucked it up. I think they've really fucked this up.
I think they fucked it up from the outset. Like, the second I saw that the controllers were non-analog, I immediately knew it's like there's something way wrong with this. Because that's a lot of your library that is unplayable. Not necessarily all of it, but a lot of decent ones. Ape Escape is a pretty great game. That's pretty pivotal. It's the first. It's an important part of PlayStation history. It's the first game that focused on DualShock controls. Why would you just leave that out like that from the core design of the? It's so weird. I'm just constantly baffled. The more I think about it, like my brain just like rotates in my own head.
There's no run on this console at all. There's none. I would be really interested to see, and maybe I'll reach out to some of my sources and see if I can get some pre-order indications here. Remember that NES Classic, and to a lesser extent SNES Classic, but NES Classic was fucking impossible to find, and it was impossible to find for a long time. Now, Nintendo is really famous for under-manufacturing things and overhyping things, but the reality is, I just did 3 Let's Plays to preload into my SideQuest YouTube channel while I'm gone on NES and SNES Classic, which are in a fucking jumbled mess there on the ground. And the fact is that they work. They work great. The games work fine. They play fine, and they delivered. And they delivered, frankly, I think at a fraction of the cost that we're getting the PlayStation Classic from. I have no problem with the library of games that they've given us on PlayStation Classic. I think the library of games, totally fine. Not necessarily the group of games that I would choose, but I'm sure that they were limited by lots of different features, and it kind of touches on everything. They have a little bit of a shooter, they have whatever the case might be.
It's a well-rounded library, all things considered, especially when you consider licensing issues with like car companies and Gran Turismo or like any number of music licenses for Tony Hawk. I understand the limits there, but still, man, it's
just disappointing because this was an opportunity to do something cool. Instead, this is going to become a joke for the brand. And it's another thing where this didn't need to happen at all. In a time where PlayStation has been totally silent, and it's actually kind of interesting that they're so silent. This has ruined their ability to do a PlayStation 2 Classic. This has ruined their ability to do an iteration on PlayStation Classic. I just don't see the excitement for this. It just seems so half-assed. Like, if I were them, I would have even maybe delayed this thing. Like, you know, it reminds me of the original iPhone, the story about the original iPhone that you read in Walter Isaacson's Steve Jobs biography, and that you just hear generally, is that Steve Jobs walked around with the original iPhone prototype in his pocket in 2006, 2007, and realized that his keys were scratching the shit out of the phone in his pocket because the screen had a plastic screen. And they made sure that they had to do it right. They had to get it right the first time. And they used Gorilla Glass or whatever. And that's kind of what we still have today. We have this idea that you really you can't scratch that screen really unless you really intend to do that. Well, he realized that in his mind, and they made it right. Spent millions of dollars fixing it, and they made it right so that they could have a little tail, and we still use iPhone today. And I look at something like this, maybe not as significant, maybe it's a little bit of a different kind of consumer device, but something where it's, if you're going to come out on the right foot, make this thing as good as it can be, emulate it right, get the right versions of the games, get the right price point, or don't do it.
Yeah.
Period. Now, I know that I haven't played it, but I don't need to know what's going on here, to have looked at it, to see videos, to hear other people's impressions that I trust, to know that half of the games aren't even for the proper regions. They're not going to run right on your fucking TVs. They're using an open source emulator. You kidding me?
The music is like slowed down on some games too. Like the battle music in Final Fantasy VII runs at like runs slower than it actually is supposed to. It's all so many weird things.
It just, I don't understand. Like, here's the big thing about it, Chris, and this is what I'm really curious about with this. This was obviously a project that people took care of. Is the CEO, the board, people in positions of power, do they look at this and they're like, what the fuck did you guys do? Or is this like what they expected? In other words, like big businesses, you have to turn the ship very slowly. It takes a long time to do anything in a business like that. They probably had to commit. So are they happy? Did like these people do their jobs? I often wonder behind the scenes kind of thing, because this doesn't seem like a job well done at all. Like not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. Seeing and hearing Digital Foundry you brought up, they were talking about Rayman, and Rayman looks beautiful. And they were talking about how Rayman looks like shit.
Yeah.
On the PlayStation Classic. It just
blurrier.
looks like garbage.
It's blurrier than the original. How is that possible?
And now, if you're the stakeholders that gave your licenses to this stuff, Ubisoft obviously with Rayman and also with Rainbow Six, Square Enix with Final Fantasy VII, are you looking at this and you're like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you doing? Or do they care? They get their little nut, and they don't care. I'm curious about it.
I don't think they care. I think Sony would probably be in the position to care, if at all.
Very weird.
But it's such a weird offshoot project that I don't even think they're paying much attention to it, as long as it sells.
It's not going to. So that was the thing. I think I had a half of a thought. I'm all frazzled today. I had half of a thought before that. I wonder how long until this thing is $50, $79.99, $69.99.
Yeah.
Who's excited about this? I'm not even trying to be an asshole. Like, who is really excited about this machine?
It was actually the only classic that I had ever thought, before they announced it and before they announced what the game library was, it was the only classic that I thought that I would really like, because it's my favorite system of all time. So I was like, oh man, I'd be totally sick to have a PlayStation Classic. Ah, oh, dude. Ah, so good. Imagine the possibilities.
Yeah, imagine the possibilities. Yeah. Imagine them. Here they are. Here are the possibilities.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, guys. And yeah, I think it's peculiar, by the way, that they didn't use the DualShock controller. They limit their library. There was such potential to do a cool machine, even if you charge more than $100, but to do something really cool with it, expandable, accessible online, maybe trophies, maybe something crazy. Do the hard work.
Yeah.
This seems like it was easy, and it seems like it was half-assed, and no one gave a shit about it. And even though they didn't explicitly copy what Nintendo was doing, they implicitly copied
what it is,
Nintendo
I
was
think,
doing.
you know what it is, I think it's like, okay, we're not going to do PSX, we're not going to do E3, we've got a new system on the horizon, we've got to do something to keep PlayStation in the public consciousness, as if it wouldn't have been already.
Right, Spider-Man and God of War are like two of the best-selling proprietary games.
I think for some reason they thought that they were going to be forgotten if they didn't do something this year, or something. Like, I don't know. I can't imagine.
One more question. Yeah. This is a good one to end on. Aaron Jacobson wrote in and said, hey guys, I want to hear your thoughts on the recent trend of heavy discounts on new game releases, sometimes only a few weeks after their release, or in the case, I'm jumping in here, in the case of Fallout 76, literally a week. I find the practice to be disrespectful to loyal day one purchasers, and that it sends the wrong message regarding the value of the property. Sales are great for everyone, but offering 50% off a title 2 weeks after release feels like a slap in the face and an admission from the publisher that their product is not selling or reviewing well. I believe in supporting developers as much as possible, and have no issue buying a full price game. Remember when new N64 games were going for $90? But again, as a loyal customer, I feel taken advantage of. Is this an ethical practice, and are publishers instantly devaluing their properties right out of the gate? Is it an ethical thing? I don't know. This is more complicated than meets the eye, though, because a lot of these discounts are not necessarily driven by the publisher, but by, the retailer. Retailers make massive purchases of these games depending on how they're convinced it's going to sell, how pre-order numbers are trending. There's a lot of different algorithmic things that they look at, and then they acquire X amount of games. And like I said, Fallout 76 was severely discounted so quickly because I think a lot of these retailers realize, like, we are not going to sell through these games. How many hundreds of thousands are Amazon probably sitting on, And they look at it like, we got to get rid of them. We have to get rid of these games and get through this stock. So it's not quite as simple. You have to also point at the retailers, I think, for saying like, well, everyone's being taken advantage of or everyone's doing the taking advantage of in this situation. But you have to follow market trends. And by being an early adopter, that's kind of the price you pay, unfortunately. If you buy a 2019 model car right now, you're going to pay more for it than if you waited 6 months.
Even with a lot of games that are coming out already, like I like to talk about Destiny a lot just because it's something that I'm pretty familiar with. Destiny comes out at $60, right? And it's pretty bare bones. And then 2 years later, it's a finished experience for $60 again. And then you get like twice as much content because you chose to wait that amount. I mean, that's what I'm probably going to do with the next Destiny that comes out, if there's even another Destiny that comes out. I know the cycle here. It's like, okay, they're going to come out with this thing. It's going to be disappointing, but in 2 years, it's going to be great. I'll wait 2 years. Sometimes you got to like just think ahead like that.
It was even more egregious because Destiny 2 was free for a little while as well.
Yeah.
Although not with all the expansions, clearly.
Yeah.
But I agree that it is a little strange. It's just part of the compact, I guess, we have with the different layers of the video game industry. And someone wrote into me, and I answered it on a Q&A on Patreon, that Nintendo keeps the value of the game high. They don't discount their games. They just don't do it for a very long time. So is there something to that? In other words, like, on one hand, when you buy a Nintendo game, that if you waited 6 months, you're not going to get a discount. You might as well get it now. And on the other hand, with PlayStation, you're like, well, there's a chance that this is, or a very good chance this is not going to be $60 in a few months, even if it sells well. I mean, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is selling crazy well, and they just sold during Black Friday the entire DLC package with the season pass and everything for like less than $60. So it's not like it's just games that bomb. Even games that do well, you have to kind of pay the price. So you're paying like an early admission price, I think, and also it's just the nature of the game. And I always encourage people to wait for prices to drop because they really reliably do drop on PlayStation. They really do. I mean, even first party games become way cheaper.
Yeah.
God of War and Detroit are not $60 anymore. I don't think Spider-Man's going to be $60 for much longer. And so you just have to kind of play it by ear. It's an unfortunate kind of situation, but I think it's just the crapshoot of playing games. And you have to ask yourselves, is paying $20 more for God of War in the spring as opposed to now, was that worth it to you to get early access, to be part of the conversation, to know what it's all about, to not have to wonder and wait and think about it? That's probably worth the $20. So you kind of have to look at it through that lens as well.
Just got to be smart.
No, exactly.
And be patient.
Yes. It's good to be patient. I always tell people, I understand wanting to play games initially, early, quickly, but there's so many games. Really reduce it to brass tacks. What are you losing? If money's really tight for you, if you live paycheck to paycheck, if you have a budget, what are you really losing playing your free PlayStation Plus games or playing something? The Last of Us Remastered was $5 during Black Friday. $5.
That's insane.
On PlayStation Network.
If you never played that game, you should pick that up. It's a steal.
So I always am convinced that if you just play your cards right and you're patient and you're smart and you're thorough, you can get great deals at all times on games of quality and wait for the next game of quality to become cheaper. Otherwise, you're going to just buy in with everyone else, and that's fine too. So
exactly, unless it's something like Doom Eternal, in which you should pay $500 minimum.
Well, there you go. We almost made it to the end of the show. We almost made it to the end of the show.
$15,000.
Well, $15,000.
Yes.
$15,000 for Doom Eternal.
I'm just being an asshole.
Holy moly. $15,000.
I'm excited is all I'm saying.
It looks great. I'm staring still at this
this
paper towel mess.
Of brawny. What did you say? Is it happy birthday written, is sprawled on it in Sharpie?
Yeah.
I didn't even see it.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, look at that.
It's here somewhere. Hold on a sec. There it is.
In fairness, that's more effort than I had anticipated.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Well, Chris, thank you for your time.
Of course.
We're going to record another episode shortly for next week that will preload and that will be ready for you. That's our most anticipated games of 2019.
Excited about that.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited to go through that list and hear from you guys. Lots of questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas integrated into that episode as well. But in the meantime, remember, you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. You get every episode of Sacred Symbols 3 days early without ads if you do so at a certain level there, so please consider it. You're able to submit questions, comments, and concerns. Anyone who supports us on Patreon at the $1 level or higher every month also gets exclusive podcasts each month. There are, I think, 3 or 4 exclusive Sacred Symbols podcasts now on there that will never be released to the public. So there's like another 4 episodes for people just if you want more content that's waiting over there for you. It might even be 5, but I think it's 4. So go check that out. Appreciate you guys doing so. If you listen to us on free feeds, which tens of thousands of you do, please leave us nice reviews, nice words, nice star ratings. We need them. But that's all I have. Slow week, not incredible amount to talk about. When we come back for not episode 24, but 25, we'll catch up on everything that we missed.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot to catch up on.
I think so too. I got to get the hell out of here. I got to go see my family. It's been a long time. So I'm sorry. Again, a quirk of timing. It's a shame to be gone during a time when there's announcements, but it's just the way it is. So thank you for your patience on that. We appreciate you. Chris, thank you for your time. And we'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is fan-supported over at patreon.com/ColinsLastStand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and I want to thank you from the very bottom of my heart for your incredible kindness and generosity. Sean Battershaw, Martin Beck, Fred Bentz, Michael Betts, Eric Bishop, David Blodel, Mark Boggio, Spencer Brand, Isaac Brewer, Lennon Brixey, Matthew Brousseau, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Dylan Burns, Alex Cabrera, Brian Cacciatolo, Will Caldwell, Luis Cancato, William O'Carroll, Matthew Carter, Brian Chan, Travis Chandler, Sean Chandler, Kenneth Charr, David Chestnut, Simon Conception Jr., Brad Cooley, Cutter Crow, Nick Cummings, Daniel Diamore, Daniel Delanikos, Travis Depew, Mitchell Durkash, David Ellis, Albert Escobar, Brian Fink, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Stefano Fontana, Photios Frangos, Connor Gajian, Alexander Gates, Michael Gates, Salem Ghanem Al Ghanem, Daniel Glassford, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Ryan Greenwood, Miranda Grubba, Andres Guzman, Tyler Harris, Nathan J. Henry, Wyatt Henry, Asa Haas, Zahn Isa El Ricey, Josh Yeager, Paul Joyce, Greg Juliffs, Jeremy Key, James Kinslow III, Ryan R. Kittredge, Taylor Christian Laudrin, Christian Larson, Donald Laws, Joe Lawson, Don Q. Lee, Ashlyn Lee, Anthony Lencioni, Patrick Leslie, Dustin Lewis, Keith Adrian Lewis, Chad Lewis, Mark Liberto, Aaron Litwiller, Lou and Ray Loper, Colin Love, Josh M., Kiet Mai, Ryan T. Mandel, Peter Mark, Joe McPartlin, Wyatt McVeigh, Dennis Minchin, Andrew Mendoza, Albert Miranda, Patrick Malloy, Betty Ann Moriarty, Abe Mukhtar, Brian Nietzsche, Josh Netzel, Jonah Newman, Adam Nix, Brian Ott, Jorge Palomino, Todd Paxton, Marius S. Peterson, Enrique Perez, James Perrone, Eric A. Peterson, Jason Pettit, Matthew Plaster, Lawrence F. Prokop, Eric R. Pryor, Michael Renner, Peter Reynolds, Jonathan Rice, Toby D. Riemenschneider, Austin Riley, Petro Rose, A.G. Rowe, Matthew Savoy, Hans Schierenberger, John Schultz, Chris Schaefer, Michael Shanholtz, Toby Shootman, Joshua Smallwood, John Tabanillo, Ahmad Tamar, Ben Thompson, Carl Tallman, Gabble Toombs, Tam Tran, Dan Vale, Adam Van Kuren, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Dade Michael Edward Wendt, Mike Wayne, Tyler Woodall, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zuniga, Random Guy Radio, Mad Mock Media, Casual Misfits Gaming, Supershot ST, Throw 7, Infinite, Beric, Mubarak, Richter 86, Dav 9834, Donk 2015, and Gavin.